Once again, welcome everyone to Baby Steps. Peggy Simpson is joining me. I'm Bart Bartlett on this awesome Tuesday afternoon. Peggy, how is your Tuesday going?
Oh, it's going well. How about you?
I'm not going to complain at all. It's warm, it's hot, and as long as the appliances in the house will stop breaking, means I haven't to buy new ones. It's been a summer of that for 2020, but that's okay.
Well, I've been busy with various meetings and things as well, but it's been a good day. Good day. Yesterday was super busy. Excited to cover our topic today.
Absolutely. And welcome to Jennifer, who just joined us. And let's get going because this is a really good topic and got some good stuff here.
All right, let me share my screen. All right. So today we are culminating our discussion of EQ, talking about relationship management. So just for a brief review, for those who may not have seen this before, we started our series talking about self-awareness, right? We went down this self column first. So we talked about self-awareness and how to get more in touch with your emotions. And then following behind that, we talked about how to manage your emotions and how to manage your reaction of your emotions and to actually qualify your emotions to the appropriate degree of intensity. And then we talked about watching people and being aware of what messages they're sending and what they're going through. We talked about that last time with social awareness. And this time we're going to be talking about managing the relationships, sometimes referred to as building your social skills or your people skills, right? But I really like the relationship management because I think it's a more descriptive term for what it is we're really focusing on during this session. So as usual, let's define it first. What is relationship management? It's using your awareness of our own emotions, that's self, and those of others, that's the social awareness, to manage the interaction between the two successfully. And that is how you build relationships, whether they be work relationships, family relationships, intimate love relationships, friendships with people, colleagues, peers, mentors, coaches, you name it, right? Everybody we come in contact with, we build some type of relationship with. All of these take work, and this is always a skill that you have to learn. This is not something that somebody has an innate ability. This is really the culmination of your emotional intelligence. When you put all the ingredients, right, that we've talked about, this is the cake. Once you get good at this area, you've got a good fully baked cake, to use your analogy that you like to use. So how do we do this? How do we manage relationships? You'll see here that there are several. I'm going to speak to a few and then, as usual, dive into a couple of them a little deeper. We need to be open and curious. We need to choose a style that works for the current audience. So an example that you and I have both used many times is a leader that we're both familiar with chooses whether he talks really fast and uses big words or small words, or slows down and pauses between each sentence, depending on who he's communicating with. And why do you do that? One, so that they can receive the message the way they're most comfortable, because the important thing to him is that they get the connection, that they get his meaning. And if they're just trying to keep up with your conversation, or they're losing their focus because you're talking too slow for what they're used to, then your message isn't going to get across, right? So choosing that right communication style, being aware of it and then choosing it, and avoid giving mixed signals. You don't want to say, "Oh, I'm so happy for you." You know what I mean? Talk about being happy for somebody and then your face is everything down. Now, you might do that if you're being sarcastic, right? But that's not typically, you want to give consistent signals. This next one I think is really important. Accept feedback or criticism. You have to, this is a level of maturity that a person needs to get to. If you really want to take yourself to the next level, if you really want your relationships to be able to go to the next level, you have to be able to accept criticism. Now, you don't have to allow someone to totally disrespect you, right? But you have to be willing, because again, as we've talked about before, their perception is the reality that you need to focus on and deal with. You may not have intended something to come across a particular way, but if that's what you're presenting to them or to an audience, then you have to own that. You have to own that and understand and find out it may be totally unconscious. You may not even realize what you're doing to make them feel that way. But that's where you need to own it. And you have to build trust. No relationship is going to be long-standing if there's no trust. Just trust is the foundation. And you build trust by being true to your word and many of the things that we have talked about in the past. And I'm going to stop there with those first ones and see if you have thoughts.
Yeah, one thing came up real quickly for me when you were talking earlier about relationships and social skills. I do think it's really possible that you can be a people person and be horrible at relationships, because you could be the life of the party. You could be someone just loves to be around and you're in that moment, but you don't know how to build that foundation and build it so much deeper. Feedback, boy, that's powerful. The thing that I want our audience, our listeners to remember, and this is unequivocally 100% guaranteed fact, feedback is nothing more than information. That's all it is. It's someone else's opinion. And the saying, opinions are like, everyone's got one. That's exactly what feedback is. You take it, you probably have to own it a little bit because that's their perception of you, but it's not their reality. And the last bit is this part of building trust too, and the communication style. Always remember, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen twice as much as you speak.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I love that, when you talk about accepting feedback, you're right, it might be their opinion. So when we talk about accepting feedback, it doesn't mean that you just have to take it all, what they're dishing out. You have the right to ask them for examples, ask them for concrete evidence, right? To cut through what is just opinion,
right,
for what it is that you're actually doing, saying, reflecting, whatever it may be that causes them to think a particular way. And I have probably used this example before in our conversations, but it's kind of a classic one for me anyway, when we talk about accepting and receiving criticism. So again, my kids, right? They said, well, you always want to be right. And I personally don't consider myself a person that has to always be right. So, that kind of shocked me when they said it. And both of them said it at different times, right? Both of them said it at different times. And I'm like, why do you say that? Well, they both said in their own way, I'm paraphrasing, they both said, well, whenever there's something that comes up that we ask your opinion on, you give us some advice and it always ends up being right. And I said, whoa, wait a minute. That doesn't mean I'm purposely trying to be right. That's just happens to be maybe my more experience for the issue you had. I could foresee in the future better than you could, but that doesn't mean I'm meant to be right. Right. So I had to switch that feedback around and say, whoa, wait a minute. I understand. I had to ask the question, though, so I could understand what they were connecting, because it was so left field to me. Now, maybe there'd be 100 other people that would say I always want to be right as well. But I haven't heard it from 100 other people. That doesn't mean they don't have that opinion. But those two people on different instances both said the same thing. And so I asked, when I heard it the first time, I asked for understanding. When I heard it the second time, I asked for validation, right? Because obviously they're both my kids. So that's a different relationship anyway. But yeah, you have every right to ask for concrete evidence when you're asking for feedback. I think one of the next things here is really critical, important, is to acknowledge and compliment someone's feelings. So how do you compliment someone's feelings? You know, recognize when they've taken on something that was probably a challenge for them, or that you could visibly see they were uncomfortable doing, or that you know you've had conversations with them before about managing certain behavior. And when you see evidence that they mastered that behavior, then compliment them, because what you reward gets repeated. So you have to show it when you care, right? You just can't put that steel face, that shield up, and expect to grow and build relationships. You really, now that doesn't mean you have to fall all over people, right? But you have to be practical and open yourself up. And there is a minimal level of risk for everybody to open yourself up a bit, because you want your openness to be well received. And maybe it will, maybe it won't, but you'll never know if you don't try. So you have to try. Explain your decisions and don't just make them. And this is not just for kids. This is absolutely not just for kids. This is probably one of the most critical things as a leader of teams, of a team in a workplace. You know, just because you may have the title and you may have the vision doesn't mean you're going to get a team to follow you. But if they understand the why, just like for us individually, if we understand our why and we know what it is, makes us tick, makes us passionate, gives us energy, makes us look forward to doing things, that it doesn't feel like work. It's the same thing for a team, right? If they understand why decisions are made, they will be better at executing solutions. I see you shaking your head a couple of times.
Yeah, I'm liking this a lot. I mean, just go up a couple of bullets to compliment the other person's feelings. Here's what I add to that: compliment and compliment. Compliment in the term that you can be that balance to help build that trust. So they're that balance to help build that trust. You compliment what they're doing, then also compliment them. And if the compliment is nothing more than, I understand, I admire you, that's a compliment right there that they can really take as validation. But yeah, be that balance, and then they may be doing something that's totally out of your pay grade. You may have no idea what it is, but you can still be that balance, because you can be that support system that says, you know what, I see that you really believe this. Let's talk it through and just ask some questions and see, but then compliment them for what they're doing.
Yep. Shout out to Allison and Emma over here.
And Jeff and Darius over here.
As we go forward. So yeah, and I think, you know, we talked about accepting other people's feedback. You know, when you give feedback, make it be constructive, give them examples. You know, maybe you preface it by, hey, you may not realize this. Find the right moments to give the feedback. Clearly, you don't blurt feedback out in the middle of a crowd, right? Right. You want it to be personal so that you can have a dialogue about it. And don't do it when you're necessarily in an emotional state, right? Particularly if it's a family relationship or close relationship or a work relationship, anyone really. You know, if you're highly frustrated, that's not the time that you necessarily want to talk about what it is that person did that made you frustrated. You may need to take a break a minute so that you can be constructive and have a real conversation that can get you through. So you may not always agree what someone did, letting them know it frustrated you and why allows you to both agree in future how to avoid that conflict. So that's why that feedback from either someone giving it to you or you giving it to someone else is so critically important. And, I think don't avoid the tough conversations. Sometimes you just have to look at the elephant in the room. You just have to address it and get it out there and get people to talk about it. And even if they don't all agree, they don't have to agree. They don't have to share the same opinion, but they have to agree to disagree, right? So you can get through it and get to whatever it is you have to accomplish.
Yeah, and I would add, tough conversations are only tough if you make them tough. If you come from a place of love and trust, it's an authentic conversation.
True. That's very true. Thank you for that. That's very true. Whoops. I went all the way to the end. Hang on a minute. Let me try this again. We're going to go through here. Yeah. Sorry about that.
That's cool. To rebuild it. I love it. Because there's so many powerful pieces to this.
Now we'll try. There we go. So, to show that you care, being authentic, to your point of being authentic, I want to remind you to remember the small things. Remember the small things. Please, thank you. I'm sorry. That was great. I'm proud of what you accomplished, right? You make me smile. Whatever it is that might be a positive, even in your emails, right? Even if it's not face-to-face conversation, but in your emails. And this, Bart, I got to hand it to you. You are great at remembering these small items, these accolades to people. It just puts a smile on your face, even if you read it in an email. It just does. It makes a world of difference.
And when you're talking about these, I think about a theater friend of mine up in New York, and almost invariably every single day, he will put a note out on Facebook and out on Instagram that says, if no one has told you this yet today, let me be the first to say it. I love you.
Ah, nice.
And another one, a friend of ours, Big D Desmond, always has a powerful statement first thing in the morning that gets you thinking, wow, this is going to be the day that I've been waiting for.
Yeah, he does. Always encouraging.
Always.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So we talked about building trust, and we talked about how important that is, right? Sometimes it can take a long time to build it, but keep in mind, be careful. Relationships are sensitive, and you can lose that trust really quickly. And it's often difficult to overcome. But building trust, I think at least, is probably the most critical objective to achieve in building relationships. And what allows you to build your trust? Open communication, willingness to share, consistency in behavior over time, following through, your reliability, staying true to your word. And in short, your word is what builds trust, your actions behind your words. And as you say, Bart,
what comes to mind? Yep. What comes to mind when someone mentions your name, that is your brand.
That's right. So to that end, I would challenge you all, as you look at your current level of ability to manage relationships, right? Take a little inventory of the relationships you have. How are your family relationships? How are your work relationships? Who are the people that you have really good relationships with? And what do you think makes that connection? And find, who's someone that maybe you don't have that relationship with, and try to identify the obstacles that have occurred in building that relationship to what it could be. And once you identify the obstacles, then you can put a plan together to try to work on it yourself. Or maybe it's something you need to talk through with those people, right? But as you're doing this, as you're taking your inventory, doing your assessment of your relationships, think about that comment Bart said about your brand. If you needed a logo for your brand, what would it be?
Ooh, that's good. That's
If you
real
needed
good.
a tagline for your brand, what would it be?
Yeah.
Think about that.
Wow.
What do you want your tagline to be?
Mhm. Wow. That's very good. That's very,
That
very powerful.
that may help you in looking at your relationships. That may help you think about areas where you can improve. In trying to define what you want your tagline to be, what you want your brand to be, that may give you the courage to go seek some feedback, right, from people. I tried this with you. I remember, Bart, and it was actually from Dr. Phil's book, right?
Right.
When I asked you to say, if you had to describe me as a car,
Mhm.
what kind of car would it be and why?
Mhm.
And you gave me your answer. Your answer was one of a kind, entirely different than 99% of the other answers I got, right? So I had to think about that. What made your answer be so different? Because it's way over here, right? And who were the people that gave me all the others? So I thought through that and came up with some activities, right, for myself. But all of these little things help. But really think about, who do you want to present yourself to be? What's very important? I know. Well, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Mhm. Okay.
For your brand, what's the most important thing that you want people to recognize you for?
The it factor.
Mhm.
The it factor. That, what you, and I use this frequently. I call it the WYSIWYG. You know what a WYSIWYG is? WYSWIG. It's an acronym that Apple computers made up when they first came out with the Macs. But WYSIWYG means what you see is what you get. Yeah, WYSIWG. Yeah,
Now,
is
we're dating ourselves
I
using
know it.
WYSIWYG, right?
Yeah, what was
We
it? What
really
you
are.
see is what you get. WYSWYG. What you see is what you get.
Yeah.
But that's it. I mean, it's the authentic piece to all of that. And as you were talking about trust, I mentioned, I think week before last, one of my very favorite movies is The Help. And to me, one of the most powerful scenes in that movie, the very end, when Skeeter tells Minnie and Abilene that she's been offered a job in New York with Harper and Row, the company that published their book. And she said, and Skeeter said, I can't go because things are getting bad around here. And pretty much Minnie touched Abilene on the shoulder and said, Miss Skeeter, you go. She said, I'm gonna take care of Abilene. She's gonna take care of me. There was such a trust between those three ladies there.
Yeah.
That they knew no matter where they would be miles apart, they would always be connected. And they had built that trust up through all that.
They did, and that was an interesting set of relationships, as we talked about last time. Watch movies if you want to be socially aware, because she didn't have that relationship with Abilene and Minnie at first.
No.
Right? She had to earn their trust.
Perceived debutante. Yeah.
Right. She had to earn their trust.
Right.
But they had a solid relationship going in.
Yes.
But because of the racial tensions in the world at the time, and even still today, there were battling many of those. To build trust between those three people was very unusual.
Very unusual.
I love to watch the relationships build there too. That's a good movie.
Yep.
Yep. All right. So another way to build relationship, social awareness does not mean social media. Social awareness is not built necessarily using social media. You have to get face to face. You have to talk to people, right? You have to interact with people. Sending a text, working your thumbs. There is so much that can be misinterpreted through all of that. So spend more time with people, even on a Zoom, even though we have to social distance, we have the Zoom. So while I can't be in the same room with you, we can't go to Starbucks and have our coffee like we often do.
That's right.
We can still see each other. We can see the body language, the facial expressions, and we can talk, right? I can look at you and see whether or not you're getting my message and vice versa.
Right.
And even in meetings when we're on Zoom calls, and you and I have been on calls where there have been 50, 60 people at one time. But for those who share their video, and you can actually see their reaction, you can see their level of engagement, you can see the confusion perhaps, it just helps you interact with people. So definitely, if you want to work on your relationships, less technology, more person. Although Zoom is a technology, it may help you during this particular time where we have to social distance. Because as you said before, in person, we have a mask on. So I can't see the person's entire face.
Right.
A few closing thoughts. Social skills are developed by interacting with our fellow human being face to face, not by using social networking sites. And the most important single ingredient to success is getting along with people. And if there's one secret to success, it lies in the ability to get the other person's point of view and see things from that person's angle as well as your own. And if anybody doesn't know who Dale Carnegie is, right? Go Google him.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. This is very key for him to speak out and say that the one secret of success lies in the ability to get the other person's point of view.
Yep.
Any last thoughts?
I love this. This has been a great week. I can't wait to on Thursday for us to wrap it all up together and look at what is coming next. But I mean, this is probably one of the most critical sessions we've done, because I think of all the things that the new normal is going to bring to us. It's a new normal of social skills. And I loved your comment about Zoom, about FaceTime, wherever it is. And if you're on a call or interacting with people, turn your video on. Doesn't matter what you look like, turn your video on, because that's what you're saying is to them, whatever you're doing is important to me.
Right.
And if you're the leader and you don't have it turned on, what you're communicating to many people, not to say all, but to many people, is just listen to me. Your opinion doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Well, and I can tell you, I was recently on a call, right? And people were sharing their video, and one person in particular I was watching, right? I was applying some of these skills, watching people's behavior, their level of engagement. And there was one person in particular who just throughout a fairly lengthy conversation never really looked at the screen, never really seemed to be fully engaged. And absolutely, when a question came up for that individual, their name alerted them, and they quickly looked at the screen and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I had a brief interruption. I guess they thought can you repeat the question?" I guess they thought forgot they were showing their video, because, you could clearly tell that they had not been engaged, and they were able to answer the question. But, it's just critical to stay engaged in conversation. And it's hard. It's not easy on the Zoom calls. Right. It's so easy to hide behind. And I don't always show myself on a video call. It depends on how long the call is and what the purpose is. But particularly on long calls, I try to share my video because I want the person to know that I'm engaged. Right. I want them to know that I'm not sitting over here reading other emails and things like that. Right. So just be aware. Next time on Thursday, what we're going to do is just go back quickly and wrap up our discussion of emotional intelligence. And then we can talk about next steps. And I'll be handing the baton back to you for our next topic.
I'm looking forward to this. This is really good. Really, really good.
So with that, I would like to wish everybody a great evening, a great tomorrow, and we'll be back here on Thursday. Same time, same
Same
channel.
channel. That's right. Until Thursday, everyone have an amazing rest of your night tonight and a great hump day tomorrow. And we'll see you here on Thursday.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.